Hey guys, it's Tuesday night and it's 7 o'clock, and that means it's time for That's Cool Drink. I have myself a lovely mango cart. This is in honor of Stefan Hardstop Rossi, who is moving to Florida because we have had a handful of Florida men back to back to back here, and tonight is no exception. As we got Kevin Smith from KSR Performance and Fabrication, and as I've recently found out, used to be KSR Racing Engines as well. Because I'm a hell of a stalker, and you'll get to hear all about that as well tonight. But Kevin is on tonight. My second famous dude on a YouTube guy that kind of got his start, and we'll talk to him a little bit about kind of how that happened, and he's been a little bit out of the YouTube game, and we'll talk to him about that too and see what's going down. But another one that's going to be really, really cool. You get to see Kevin on a lot of the Cleetus stuff, the Freedom 500, the Danger Ranger that he apparently cheated in. We'll talk to him about that, and I've got some cool pictures of that as well. And he's a multi-time winner in a handful of these things as well. And so we're going to talk to him about kind of growing up with that and kind of starting with the early models. There's this Danger Ranger right there. The early models of the Crown Vics until, the later iterations, because they've had huge changes in those cars. So Kevin's been there for the whole thing. I'd like to kind of pick his brain on that a little bit. And then there's a lot of kind of background of Kevin that's not drag racing type stuff. So he's kind of been around the block with a lot of sort of different stuff. And it really reminds me of a time that I interviewed him nearly after he wadded up his car called Soccer Mom. That's a collaborative effort between him and Kimber Jones, and we'll talk about that as well. But he got that car, he popped the something, it blew the head gasket or something, but it exited water out of it. And he was driving over that stuff at 700 feet, and 7-second heavy street car at 700 feet is moving at a quite a clip, and he kept the thing under control and didn't crash it. And I talked to him about it and said, well, you need a new pair of underwear. And he was he's like, I'm used to wrecking stuff, dude. I did a ton of like roundy round and road race stuff, so I'm not worried about wrecking. Like, I've wrecked a lot. So we'll get into a bunch of that stuff too, which is cool. But Kevin is awesome. This is a super cool deal. If you watch the Finnegan Speed and Marine updates from all the Sick Week, you saw that they were at the KSR shop doing some dyno testing. And that's exciting for me because in 2 weeks, we are going to have Mike Finnegan on That's Cool Drink. So that is going to be cool. And then next week, I have Travis Dieterle, which was super awesome. He was working on the Elite Pro Stock team. I talked to him in Vegas a lot, and he's got that four-wheel drive square body C10 that was Turbo LS. He fell in love with naturally aspirated big block from the Pro Stock world. So he put a naturally aspirated big block in the truck that's 500-inch. It's a kind of homage to a Pro Stock car. It's going to be a high revving deal. Will not be a stick car because he wants to keep it a four-wheel drive truck. But it's going to be a high revving big block thing. So we're going to have him next week. And then again, Mike Finnegan in 2 weeks, which is going to be cool. And Mr. Dash, that is cool. And you may drink as well, sir. But tonight, you guys, Kevin Smith, KSR Performance and Fab. If you've been on Sick Week, who I'm throwing the homage out to tonight, he has been a stop on Sick Week. He's rolled out pizzas for folks, and like this dude's like kind of an open book on Sick Week stuff. But he's always kind of thrashing on either his stuff or someone else's stuff. So tonight's going to be your night to be able to ask him questions. I'm going to ask him a ton of stuff, and we're gonna dig into a little bit of what makes this dude rock, and what's going to make a bunch of you guys happy, because I'm a G-body dude. This guy's a closet G-body dude. He actually has this car he's building in his shop right now that will be Olds powered. In this picture, it's also Olds powered. This is a nitrous assisted car, I believe. And on top of that, he has and has wrecked a G-body Malibu. So you know that we are going to party tonight G-body style, because I've got this one right here that runs, drives, and is an awesome stick car with face plates and high RPM and naturally aspirated LS steel as well. Nick Ball says, hi, Klaus and Leela. I'm glad we found what's going on with your engine. Yes, he's got an awesome CTSV coupe with an awesome new ported blower, and you are correct, sir, G-body or no body. That said, guys, let's get this kicked off tonight, episode number 72, and my second famous dude in a couple of weeks, Mr. Kevin Smith from KSR Performance and Fab. Here we go. Straight out of Gainesville.
What's up, everybody?
Dude, what in the heck are you up to?
Working a lot.
And your main deal is you do the Performance and Fab shop. That's your 9 to 5. That's what pays the bills.
Yeah, it's more 8 to 10 on at least the nights that I don't have my kids. And it's funny you found the Kevin Smith racing engines, which we actually get calls for them, and that's a go-kart company like up in the Carolinas somewhere.
Oh,
that's not actually us. I've been KSR since, which is Kevin Smith Racing is what KSR stands for. Right. I thought it was cool just to have like KSR Performance and Fabrication, because that's like, I like the performance stuff. I also like the fabrication stuff. And that, is kind of what really started the whole gig off. And worked for another company for a while and kind of had the knack really more for the fab stuff. Right. And when that deal did what it did, like kind of started my own gig. And like the fabrication stuff, you could even say goes all the way back to when I was 10, 11 years old building model cars. I'd chop them up, customize them, bend up roll cages, and like make roll cages in these little model cars and make the wheels
removable. Like Erdl, cut apart, glue together. So you started customizing those. That was your start into fab.
Yep. I had a couple in the local hobby shop. They had like a display case, and like I'm there, like a couple of my cars, and I'm like 12 years old, and I went back and picked them up when I was like 16, and mine looked like crap compared to the like other ones that were built by like older people than I was at the time. But like, all the way back then, that's kind of what really got it all kicked off, I guess you could say. And the car thing came from my dad. Like my dad had a 70 Oldsmobile W30 442.
Okay, so that's kind of the Olds roots.
Yep. Arguably the baddest Oldsmobile hot rod ever off the factory. I had a 455 big block in it, had like lightweight fenders, lightweight inner fenders, like all this cool stuff. And I think even his with some slicks on it. And I think he did some trickery to it back when I was really young. And I think it ran like mid to high 12s, something like that.
What year is this roughly?
Probably like mid 80s, because I was born in 1980.
Oh, okay. So like, dude, mid 12-second car in like 85, dude, that's like an 850 car now.
Yeah. It really didn't take a lot to do it.
Right.
Right. But yeah, he, I think he sold that, because life and kids, and he was a mechanic at the local Oldsmobile Cadillac dealership.
Okay.
And did his own thing at the house for a little while, and I got to test drive like 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers when he would fix them. And we had like a 1 acre fenced in yard, and I'd be making laps, and I kept getting fat, and he would always be like, don't go out there and wreck and go too fast. And I can remember when I got in trouble because I kept going faster and faster, and like I'm on this like 4-wheeler, and I'm making the inside perimeter of the fence, And the faster you go, the wider your lap gets. And I like ran this thing into the fence, and I'm like clipping it with the handlebars and the tires down the inside of our chain link fence. And like the next time I passed the house, he's like, pull it in. And I'm like, shoot. But, that was, oh yeah, that was probably, I'm sure he heard it because I'm out there just getting it on this little 4-wheeler, just blasting around the yard. And, that's one of my earliest memories, I guess you could say, aside from like, I had a bike race at my 5-year-old birthday party, and we had a like pedal bike race, like around our yard and down our driveway and all kinds of stuff. But
was your dad like into cars? Was he also like a car dude? Did he pass that kind of on to you, or?
Yeah, like the mechanic and stuff there at the house. Like I said, he had the Oldsmobile, and I think sold it. Like I said, I was probably 8, 9-ish, I think, when he sold it. Like, I don't remember a lot of it, but there's the pictures, and I can, kind of remember back.
Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy, but you remember being in it. And
yep.
It wasn't then either. Like, it was, but it wasn't. Like, you say that now, man, holy cow. But, like, in the mid-'80s, there was the crunch that, like, muscle cars weren't worth any money at the time. You hear
they were everywhere.
Selling,
like,
like 3
cars
or whatever.
Cars that we would consider to be cool today were just everywhere. Chevelles and Novas and all this other stuff. So
your buddy's mom drove a 71 Nova or a 71 Chevelle Chevy like to school. Like drove her kid to school in that car. Yep.
And back to my dad, like he's kind of gone the route, which he's always been into fast stuff. Like right now he lives on a lake, which when I was, I guess when I was 15, we moved out to a lake house that's like 20 minutes from the shop here. And he likes fishing. He likes fast boats, and he's got a bass boat that'll do like 90 plus miles an hour. And I actually went out on it last week with him, and me and Eddie were blasting around on it before work one day. And I mean, a 90-mile-an-hour bass boat, that'll get your attention because
that's fast. Like that's a fast anything boat. And if it's just a bass boat, like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's a Allison brand boat, which some people may recognize that brand. They're a really ultra high performance bass boat. And being that they're ultra performance, they're also really efficient. Like his gets really great fuel mileage when you compare it to like these heavier boats. Like it's a wicked boat. Like, and it's weird to me because like a lot of you have seen me drive, like done pretty well in like some road racing stuff, which there's some trophies buried back up there from the road racing days, but done really well in the Cleetus events with the Crown Vics and the Danger Ranger stuff. And
how many of those have you won?
If you include Danger Rangers, 5. So there's 2 Danger Rangers and 3 Crown Vic races.
Right. And you just won the Burnout.
Yep. Yeah, I think I've won the Burnout stuff 3 times as well.
Right.
Burnout Rivals, and then the streetcar shootout with Soccer Mom at Indy. Like a couple years ago at Indy, I had people tell me I won the Burnout contest there too. I think I finished 2nd. Right. But there was other people that were there that were in the class, and they were like, dude, yours was way better. I don't know what the judges were looking at. But I won the drag race event with Soccer Mom. I won the Crown Vic race Friday night, and then tried to win the Burnout contest and finished 2nd or 3rd. I can't remember exactly which, but
that would have been a hell of a triple crown there. Deal. Yeah, hell yeah.
That would have been awesome. And I could have I thought I had a good shot at the Freedom 500 a couple weeks ago, and started last, worked my way all the way up to the lead, fought with Travis, passed him, and ran away with it when I got by him, and then he got back by me on a restart, and we were playing games on the restart, and he snookered me on a restart even though I was the control car.
Right.
I forgot to downshift, and I forgot to use the nitrous, and he got by me, and I just couldn't. I beat his back bumper off, but I couldn't get around him without just driving through him.
Right.
And that's not the way I want to do things, aside from what the internet thinks after, I caused one big wreck at Bristol. Yeah, and I'm the kind of person that's like very self-critical, whether it's my work, whether it's my racing that I do. Like, if I do something wrong, believe me, I know it before you know it. Like,
I'm the same
I'm
dude.
in the car,
I'm my
I know
worst
what's
critic.
happening. Yeah, so like the Bristol thing happens, and it was really evident in Garrett's video when he posted his like right after the event. You can go back and watch it. Like, I'm pissed. Like, I'm so mad at myself for causing this wreck because it's just carnage.
Right.
And I knew back then the cars were a little lacking in the safety department. Let's just be honest.
Right.
Like, they had a roll bar in them.
They had like an NHRA style roll bar in them back in the day.
So it had seats.
Right. It had like a main hoop and just door bars, but now it's got all the big door bar, and a lot of like heat stuff. I know that was like a big issue with Derek from Vice Grip. He burnt the hell out of his foot, and it was a hard thing for him to overcome.
He got sick by it. Like, talking to him about it after, like, he got some kind of blood poisoning or something. Like, it was bad.
It was
like
bad.
Right.
So now they've upped those things big time, but back then it was a different world a little bit. Yeah,
and thankfully nobody got hurt. Like, I picked up plenty of haters from that. I mean, especially because, like, Haley Deegan, she's extremely popular in the professional motorsports world.
Right.
And, like, oh boy, I had her fans coming out of the woodwork saying it was intentional and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is bad. And I owned it in a video before I even saw any of that. Like, my own video, I put out my own video. I'm like, look, I screwed up in the moment. I sniffed the lead, and that was all I could see. And, like, made some bad decisions, bumped Nick from Side by Side Blog too much, put him in the fence. Well, I got him loose enough to where he piled up into Haley, and, like, freaking, I shouldn't have ever been that close enough to him that early in the race. But it was a symptom of impatience and just, I'm going to lead a race at Bristol, because one of the questions you're going to ask me later, what do I watch and stuff after hours, is like, I'm actually pretty big into Cup racing, Formula One racing. Like, I watch a lot of professional racing and commentary on the professional racing. It's got to be cool for you to be racing with all these old Cup stars. Oh yeah, it's like awesome. That has got to be. If you guys haven't seen any of the recent Freedom 500s, including like the Indy 800 that I was at last year when Tony Stewart showed up, and of course he was racing Top Alcohol, and that was a legit NHRA race, and then he was like, "Hey, you got an extra car?" And of course Garrett's like, "Yeah." And I mean, starting to turn laps with a dude like that, and all these, of course, Mr. the Biff. But all these dudes come out of the woodwork and they're wearing their fire suits with the little NASCAR, and you're like, as a fan, you've just got to be like, holy cow, dude, I watched that dude on Sunday, and now here he is. Like, that's cool. Yeah, I've been very blessed with, like, where my career path, I guess you could say, has led me, and the timing of things working out for when I first started my business, and then when I also had my kids. Like, initially when I first got kind of hooked up with Garrett, my kids were younger, still married, or no, I think it was shortly after my divorce. But anyways, they didn't have all the extracurriculars that they have now, and I was going down to Clearwater back when he was in Clearwater, probably 2 to sometimes like 6 times a month. And I could go down there, stay for a couple of days, help out in the shop. Like, I was around back when it was just him and Cooper. Right. And then right around the time James was coming in, and like, he's taken that whole thing. And I mean, Garrett, and you've dealt with Garrett, like, the dude just swings and knocks it out of the park. Like, his like, how he calculates things and makes decisions. Like, that's my business stuff. Well, in my business, I can definitely say that there's been a lot of things that I've been conservative on, because I don't want to take a risk and run myself out of business. I've come close several times because of whether it's poor decision making, or I take on a job and, like, it snowballs out of control, and then, like, you get a customer that's like, "Oh yeah, just do it the way you do it. Just do it the way you do it." And then they come pick the thing up and they're like, "Well, where'd this extra 10 grand come from?" And I'm like, "Well, bro, you told me that you wanted something different than we originally talked about.
Right.
And like, you know, as you learn and you're growing your business, and I've gotten a lot better and got a partner that's come in who handles a lot of the paperwork, because
Good.
a lot of times what would happen with me is I was kind of like the everything in the shop, as well as I used to do all the paperwork, like all the paychecks, all the taxes. Well, I mean, I would hand it over to my CPA, but I still had to organize all this
you
stuff.
got to keep track of all that. Dude, I'm a little itty bitty business. I'm just me, and I'm traveling and stuff. And you know, it's tax day today. So of course I just did my taxes. Dude, it's a mess.
Yeah.
You don't get paid for doing shit like that. That's you know, that sucks, but I get it, dude. I 100%. And I mean, you got a shop with employees with, you know, I'm sure you have a lease. You've got
mortgage, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So
you got I was at least able to start the purchase process on this building, which, you know, thankfully when some things came up and I was renting for probably the first 5 or 6 years of KSR, and then my landlord, I was in a 10,000 square foot building, but I only had like 5,700 square feet of it. And the landlord, the tenants that were in the other part of the building wanted the whole building, and they were paying more per square foot. And the owner, which is a friend of mine's dad, he's like, hey, it's just business, but like they want this whole space. And like, I got to look at it from a business perspective. And like, I've either got to raise your rent a ton or just put them in the building.
Right.
And I'm like, uh-oh. So found this building where I'm at now, was able to get my hands on and get enough financing to be able to start a purchase process on the thing, which is, you know, that's an investment in yourself and in your business. And
real estate is real estate. It's an investment.
Yep. And like when you own it, you know, I'm the one putting the roof on it, which was $38,000. And then we're the one putting air conditioning in, which was like 15 grand, which like, luckily it's a 5,000 square foot space now, but it's better shape than what it used to be. My old shop was, because my old shop, the main shop that I worked out of, was 30 feet by 100 feet. So this like weird, really odd, like long rectangle.
Yeah.
It didn't work for working on cars, but now here it's more of a more appropriately sized rectangle, and like we can work. And I've got four 2-post lifts and 2 4-post lifts, and one more that's going to be installed outside to like hopefully get cars up on and pressure wash and clean the underside of them from like and the road racing stuff. Yeah, well, there's one of the 4-post lifts to get up onto the dyno. So but yeah, it's been an adventure and made a lot of mistakes along the way, as everybody does. And thankfully, I've been able to keep a roof over us here, a roof over, you know, my house at home. Like we've got, we just lost Ricky, which I haven't even done a video about, but we have 3 full-time guys in the shop, not including me, and then 2 full-time in the office, which my business partner also has like other business interests that he comes down here and he kind of manages the office, but he's doing his stuff outside of here, but he's also like making sure that like the KSR paperwork and stuff gets all taken care of.
Right.
But he came in, and probably if it wasn't for him, like when he came in, I was actually in the middle of a sales tax audit, which if nobody's ever been through any kind of government audit, like as a business, it's terrible. Like they're digging back through paperwork. Well, then you can't work because you're dealing with accumulating all this paperwork that they're after. And
from like 3 years ago or whatever.
Oh, I think
where's this receipt from Dunkin' Donuts for $14.31?
Well, it might have benefited me. I'm not sure, but that happened right at the beginning of COVID. Okay. And like my auditor, she didn't want to come because of the COVID stuff. But like the timeline was still set that if we didn't have something worked out by this date, like I was going to have to start paying interest on this. Like the initial number was like 35 grand or something that they said I had missed in sales tax. And I'm like,
God.
no, holy crap. I can't, no, there's
Yeah, I
something
can't come
wrong
up
with
with
it.
that. Right.
So I was able to dig through and figure out where I had mostly made my errors in my sales tax accumulation, which for anybody that's got a welding business, if you weld, you must, if you only do a weld job, you still have to charge sales tax, even if it's just labor, because they consider the consumables a, a product, I guess, and you have to charge sales tax on the product. There's a thing here, I think it's probably more than just here in Florida, but like if you just perform a labor thing, you don't have to charge sales tax on them.
Right.
Well, I had made the mistake of a lot of jobs. I had just been like, oh, I welded this for somebody. Well, I had all these receipts that had welding invoices on them, and then with no sales tax on the invoice. So, and I don't know what started the initial audit or whatever, but once they start it, you got to go through it. You can't just, no, I don't want to do this. No, that doesn't work. So
God.
it was a mess, and luckily, I think the final number came down to like just under 10 grand, which was still not fun, but
it's better
something
than
I
30.
could manage. And yeah,
Right.
but in the middle of all that, like I wasn't working as much, and like a lot of the process around here, at least at this shop, is I'm on the computer. Sometimes I'm doing a video. At least I did back in the past some more, but like the guys will call me out. Hey, what do you think of this? Like, does this work? Because at the end of the day, it might be them working on a particular project, but when it's outside of that fence, I did it. Like, no matter what it is, as good as my guys are, like they don't carry with them I guess the responsibility of what happens to it outside the gate. And I think my guys are like awesome. Like Eddie and CJ are what I've got in the shop right now. And we had Ricky for a little while, but he left us about a month ago to go to fire college.
Okay.
So he's involved with that. And he did, yep. So, which I think he's got some family that, it's kind of like a family thing and whatnot. Cool. But he was doing awesome and came on board really quick. And a lot of like Eddie and CJ are both less than 30 years old. And at least in my experience, there's a different work ethic than like I'm 44, coming up on 45 later this year.
45. So yeah.
Like when you wanted something, you got out and hustled for it. And I think today's kids are even worse, at least from what I can see with my kids. But that 20 to 30-year-old age group, a lot of them don't have the drive to do hard work. You
gotta pick the one out that they exist, but it's not 3 out of 4. It's one out of, it's 1 out of 3 now. Maybe.
Yeah, and I've been real fortunate to get the guys that I've got, and we're looking to add somebody else right now. Now that Ricky's moved on, and he's still got a ways to go in his firefighting thing, which from what he from what he says, like it's tough.
That's my
wife. Yeah, I see that. But like
she didn't change her name on YouTube yet, but she's 28, so we got a bit of an age gap. So we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean that's like it's a big difference. Like, and I think the people before us, the generations before us, worked even harder. Like I look at how hard my parents worked and like what they came from to have what they have now, and that's a whole nother like socioeconomic political discussion of like we don't have time for it.
Exactly. We could go 3 hours deep, and this will be a Cooper Baguetti podcast where you need to take bathroom breaks and recharge the batteries. But no, I get it. Like that's the downward trend of society is scary a bit, and it's as we age, as we're kind of the same age of guy, we're closer to the diaper years now at the end than we were at the beginning. And these people have to take care of us at some point. Like, we need to know that they're, we're handing them a good enough, think of it as a car. Like, we're handing them a good enough car that they can drive it for the next 30 years while we're in the back of it. Like, we need to know that it's going to drive. Like, here, we've given you the best car we can. You need to now take it from here forward. And they're like on their phones. They have no desire to keep that car moving. So use whatever analogy you want.
Cars in a lot of ways have just become like an appliance for people. They use it to go from point A to point B, and there's no cool factor in the middle.
Right.
And like, even with my truck, like when I ordered my truck, that was the first new vehicle I've ever bought, and it's my daily driver. I don't have a zillion cars. Well, I have a few cars, but they're all here and they're mostly race cars.
Right.
But like, I daily drive my 3500 Ram dually, and I still, like, I custom ordered it with the blackout package on it and all this stuff. And like, when it's clean and detailed, like when I walk away from the parking lot, I'm like, dang, that thing looks pretty good.
So it looks pretty good. Right.
Yeah. And like, especially like, I mean, you mentioned Soccer Mom earlier, like when we're driving that thing down the road or something, it's like, this thing is freaking sweet. Like just in seeing, the stuff that, there she is. But like, seeing some of the stuff that's on the road these days, like, I forget, I guess I was riding around with my girlfriend the other day, and we were noticing like the common colors of cars these days.
Everything's like gray and beige and black and depressing looking.
Some whites and some silvers, and like none of the bright reds or yellows or blues or greens that like there used to be. And it's just, I even went so far as to look up like popular car colors through the decades and like how much it's shifted through the years, and just stupid stuff like that I find interesting.
Oh, totally. I agree. And I think I just saw something like on Facebook about that. And it was like a picture of like a parking lot in 1980, and it was Volkswagen Beetles and all, whatever, but it was reds and yellows and bright blues and oranges. And then it had a picture of one now, and it was grays and beiges and silvers and blacks. And it's, it sort of reminds me of a video I saw of a car, and he's videoing some boxy, and it says don't drive boring cars, and it's got an outline of whatever stupid car that is, and then he turns and he's in like a chop top, like hot rod, like it's got a blower and dual force on it and stuff, and like don't drive boring cars. Like, everyone's idea of a boring car is a different thing, but this new generation is like, I would just want to buy a Hyundai that in 5 years I'll trade in and I'll get a new Hyundai. And I want to drive a less than 5-year-old Hyundai, and I never want to put tires on it, and I don't want to change the oil, and I don't want to, I'm just going to give you I'm going to give you this old Hyundai that I drove until it stopped, and I want a new Hyundai. And
like, I'm a dad to 3 girls, and like, I don't think they care much about the car stuff at all. And it's like, even with who I am and what I do, like getting them to go to the races with me, which thankfully my girlfriend's been a big help with that, because her and her daughter are actually interested in it. And because somebody else shows an interest in them or in it, like at the Freedom 500, they actually watched the race. Well, at least 2 of my 3. And like, it was kind of funny, because my girlfriend had to leave for Saturday because her daughter rides horses and has horse stuff that she does every weekend. So they bombed home Saturday morning really early, and then we had the burnout contest on Saturday. Well,
that you won, by the way.
Yeah, I did. But one of the coolest things from that weekend for me is, like, Eddie's got a camper that he brings to the track when we go down there, and then I've got my trailer that I haul the cars down with. So it's a huge help, because usually my girls will go sit in the camper, because I mean, it's hot and they're girls, and like, the loud cars aren't what they want to be doing anyway. So they kind of play with each other. I do bring a tablet for them to play on, and My oldest is like
how old are
into
they?
drawing, and 14, 12, well, 14, almost 12, and just turned 9.
Okay.
So right in the things are about to get real fun years. So it one of the coolest things from this past weekend, like they watched the Freedom 500, they were excited. I do use a spotter, like Eddie's my spotter at those races, but I have an extra headset, and my girlfriend had it. And during a couple of the cautions, I was actually talking to my girls while I was out there, like on the racetrack, which that was really cool. And then on Saturday, they were back in the trailer or in the RV, and my 2 youngest ones had snuck out of the trailer. I told them, I'm leaving. I got to go do my thing, but I'll be back in like an hour. And like I went and checked on them before we left to like my class really started, and I got done with my run, and I pull off the pad, and as I'm rounding the corner, they're like inside the track, like jumping up and down, all excited. And I'm like,
So
"Oh, sweet!
They were digging it
here and watch." Yeah, they came out, and then when I won, it was even cooler because they got to be a part of it. So.
And if you guys haven't seen, this is Kevin's burnout car. It's got the 8-into-1 header, and this is from, I believe, this isn't from the Freedom 500, but this is when you caught I think this is but you caught the windshield on fire on this one.
Yeah, just under the center of the windshield is the crankcase tank. Like that's where the breathers are for the valve covers, and the hose is over right on the driver's side of the windshield. That's a hose off of each valve cover that goes into this tank. Well, it got hot enough that even just the fumes coming out of the crankcase got caught on fire.
Caught on fire. Okay.
And the header is like when I make a long run, the header does get glowing orange, which is just wild looking.
It's so crazy. And it sounds like nothing you've ever heard in your entire, like that 8-into-1 sounds so crazy.
Yeah. It doesn't.
If you want to hear it, actually, unpaid plug, go check out Finnegan's Day 4 video from Sick Week, and you're out there in the street with there's a bagger motorcycle and something else, and there's you're doing like a trifecta burnout, and you've got that thing on the limiter, and it sounds crazy. So go check it out. It is super duper cool. It's a pretty good. I mean, you got to hear it in person. That'll give you a pretty good idea, though. It sounds wild as hell.
Yeah, that was actually me. I don't know who was on the motorcycle, but the other car was Sean, the What No Way guy. Mm-hmm. He was down and had kind of worked in the shop for like 2 weeks before Sick Week, but yeah, that car just hangs at like 8,200. That's where I've got the thing set up. The rev limiter set up for 8,800, but I've got a timing wall set up, and that's one of the reasons why it glows the header. Is like at 8,150 RPM, it's at 28 degrees of timing. Well, at 8,200 RPM, it's only got 5 degrees of timing on it. So it just runs out of power, and it just kind of hangs there. But again, the timing is way late. It's got a flame coming out of the
it's all the exhaust.
It's just tons of exhaust heat, which because of that, I'll probably replace the exhaust valves in it every year just so I don't break an exhaust valve off. Because that's a pretty well built motor. Like it's a 13-to-1 6-liter LS that we built here in house.
Yep.
And it's got a good crank, Oliver Speedway billet rods in it, like a I think it's a Wiseco piston in it that I had custom done.
Cool.
And all BTR camshaft package and intake and stuff. And
is it cathedral port or a rec
port? Still cathedral port. It's actually some of Soccer Mom's old heads. Mm-hmm. When we had the stock block 5.3, which actually there's another stock block 5.3 that's in the car right now.
That's the one you changed at Sick Week. You hurt the nice one, put the old one back in it. That one's still in, Soccer Mom?
Yeah. We've barely run the car. Like since then I think I went to a couple of tests with it, and then we went to the World Series of Pro Mod event and ran the 530 Little Gangstas class, and I made it to 4 cars in that.
Cool.
That actually Jimmy Dale beat me, and it was a dang good race. Like Like it was a really, really good race. I think I beat
50 Shades of Brown car, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's a wheelman too. Like he definitely does really well. Haven't seen him anywhere but the drag strip, but like he had the tree on me and drove the finish line really well, and
nice.
Like he's got a good group of guys behind him, and that race was a ton of fun and had a really good payout. And so we went ahead and went down there for it, and it was a heck of a lot of fun for sure. And I'm looking to do some more of them, like if we can. But it's like there's three of us that are actually involved with Soccer Mom. There's myself and Kimber, like you mentioned,
Right.
and then Will Stevenson, who, if some of the old school people recognize that name, he like these big outlaw drag radial races that Donald Long puts on up at South Georgia Motorsports Park. Like Will won the first one back in 2008, like the first one ever. It was like 15 grand to win.
Lights Out? Was it called Lights Out back then?
No, the Lights Out is the Georgia race.
Oh, right.
The first one was at Bradenton, and I don't remember what name it had.
Either way,
but that was back when Alan owned the track, and before Victor and now Cleet got involved with owning the drag strip, and it was pretty wild. Like Will's been
No Mercy.
No Mercy. Yep, I think that might be it. Maybe because he has two of them at Georgia now, but somebody can look it up. Yeah, the 2008 Donald Long race at Bradenton. But anyway, Will actually works for me part-time when he's not at the hospital, because I can't ever remember his exact job description, because it's all that medical stuff that I don't have the idea of well it is, but he's down there, and then he'll come work for me. In fact, he's working tomorrow, I think. But like he'll help out in the shop with wiring because he's really detail oriented like I am, or he'll assemble an engine because we've got a couple engines in progress. Like we pretty much always have like 3 or 4 engine builds going on at a time. I was working on one today and found out that it had got the wrong set of piston rings for it. Like they're the right thickness, but they're not the right depth. So now I got to wait 2 more days to get a set of pistons or get a set of rings. So we're waiting on that, and that's just part of the business struggle you run into sometimes, because the plan was to finish that tonight, and it would have been finished if I had the rings. I've got all the bearing clearances set. I've got all the rings, the top rings file fit, and then the camshafts in the motor, the heads are assembled. So it's pretty much knock the pistons in it, slam the heads on it, adjust all the valves, and stick the thing back in the car. That was going to be our job tomorrow. Now we can't do that because that motor's not together. So
I'm doing the exact same thing right now on a 383 LS that's sitting in the garage. Nice. Great times. Except that was my fault. I broke a ring. So
that happens.
Yeah. So now I get to file rings all day tomorrow. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Can't wait. Yay.
Yeah, filing rings and spiral locks are 2 of my least favorite things. Yep. Like the little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are fun.
No good. When did you get your start in YouTube? When did that kick off, and then how did that kind of come to fruition?
That's all thanks to Cleetus McFarland. I mean, I've said it in some other interviews and stuff that I've done, and we got to know each other. I helped him out when he first put Holly on Leroy back. If you go way back on his channel, I think back then he was 400,000 subscribers, something like that.
Right. And you've heard, I've heard interviews of him, and that was his turning point in his kind of YouTube career as well, because he started winning. He was on a stock ECU and it sucked ass, and he was always in the bottom half of the field, and he was kind of a joke. But once he showed up with that Leroy car and started winning races, it changed his entire YouTube trajectory. So
like back when he first got that on, he was sending me logs and I was making tune-up changes, and he first went in the 8s, and that was up, I think, somewhere on the East Coast, Maryland, maybe MIR. I don't remember exactly, but then we ended up setting the quarter-mile record for the Corvette in Orlando one night. And that whole thing came about. He went to the track, and you can see in his video, like, he goes to the track and he's having clutch problems because he was still using a diaphragm style clutch in the thing.
Right.
And I was actually working the Trans Am race in Daytona.
Okay.
Because there's a car that I crew chief in the Trans Am series, and at least on the weekends that I can go, and on the weekends I can't go, Eddie goes and handles the on tracks or at track stuff, and then I'm at my house with my girls or at a gymnastics meet, and I'm on the phone and looking at data while I'm at a gymnastics event somewhere.
Right.
But anyway, we have Trans Am during the day, and because it was, I think, in November, and that was our season finale was at Daytona. So we had Trans Am during the day, and Daytona and Orlando Speed World are hour and a half away, 45, like somewhere around that.
Okay.
And so we bomb down there, and he makes a run, like as we're coming in the gate, and it, I think, drove through the clutch or spun or something. And he went up it spun. And then after we got there, I think he goes and makes a run, and it drives through the clutch. And he had thought the track was going away or whatever, because back then he was very early in his, like, drag racing knowledge development.
Right.
And, like, he didn't know near what he knows now, because we all get better and progress through all this stuff. And
yeah, I mean, you're talking, this is like 2020, 2019, probably before that.
Probably before that. Yeah, I think it's like a memory popped up on Facebook a couple of months ago, and it was like 6 years or something like that. And I texted him, and I'm like, "Holy crap, has it been this long?" And he was surprised at the same time.
Right.
But one of the runs that spun on, and he's ready to go, and he even talks about it in his video that he was ready to go, and I'm like, dude, let's make one more. Like, the track's really good. And right now, I can look at the data and I can tell you that the record is within reach. Now, I didn't say it then because I'm, along with that being self-critical of things, I'm also very conservative with, like, I try not to make huge changes when I go to a racetrack, and I try to make small incremental changes to develop a car rather than just, it went down the track, let's add 10 pounds of boost. Like, that's not the way I do things. I might bring the boost ramp in 0.2 quicker, and then beyond that point, I will add a couple of pounds or 3 or 4 pounds of boost, because usually once it's hooked up, you can do that at that point.
Right.
But I talk him into making a run, and all of the things came together. Like, when he dumped the clutch, it actually slipped the clutch like a slipper clutch for like 0.4 of a second. And the thing goes stupid quick to 60 foot. And then that set the pace to set the record run.
Cool.
And it blew his mind, and we were all excited, and you can see it in the video. And along with that conservative side of me, like, I'm still shy around a lot of these, like, bigger people that I get to hang out with. Because even back then, I'm thinking, he's got 400,000 subscribers. There's going to be a boatload of people see this. I don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah, don't want to look stupid. Right, exactly.
And in the time since then, I've realized that I'm going to look stupid no matter what. So I really don't care anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, there's times when I do care. Like the Bristol thing, I cared a lot because that was just a massive mistake that affected a ton of other people.
Right.
And like when it's a mistake that only affects me, yeah, whatever. Like you mentioned, like, some of the crashing stuff, and how I've mentioned I'm not scared to crash, because I've crashed in the road race cars a couple of times, and generally speaking,
these ones here or other cars or all of the above.
I haven't crashed either one of those. Okay. I own both of those still. Like the 225 is still here in the shop. The 223 is at a friend's shop, and I need to bring it back. But that's the 223 car right there. When we first built it and took it out, and we ran a 24-hour of Lemons race with it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Back in 2010. And that's where I got my road race start.
The Lemons, the real Lemons. So Cleetus does the Mullets. The Lemon, it's $5,000 in nickels you win.
Oh yeah.
It's boxes of nickels. It's like hundreds of pounds of nickels, or
Yep.
maybe not 5,000, but like $1,000 in nickels. It's it's wild. If you get a like Black Flag, they weld farm animals on the top of your car so they can keep an eye on you on the track because you suck. The Lemons races sound like an absolute blast. I've never done one, but now that I know that was a Lemons car, that makes it even better. They're also supposed to be like $1,000 cars or something, like cheap ass cars.
Yep. Yeah, and all of that has like $1,000 these days doesn't get you much when it comes to an actual race car. And back then, so we built that car in 2010, and then the race was a 24-hour at PBIR, and it started at midnight, December 30th, and then it ended on the New Year's on December 31st. Well, they like the judges for the series, they look at your car and they're like, this thing's too racy, so we're going to start you guys 30 laps down to the field. Right. And there was other people in the field that got that same treatment. And so we start the race. It might have been 28 laps down to the field, but we were way, way, way down to the field. There's 100 plus cars in the event. And I think we had worked our way up to ninth before it blew a head gasket because it's a VG30, Nissan V6, pain in the butt to work on. We had a guy tune it, and he was like super aggressive with it instead of it being like a more conservative endurance style tune. He put like a drag race tune in it that lasted nine and a half hours, and it shucked the head gasket out of it.
Of course.
But it that year they had a rule that was like, if more than half of the teams participating voted to crush your car, they'll crush your car. Right. So then for 2011, the rule changed that if the majority of votes that were entered voted to crush your car, so like if there's 100 entrants, 10 people turn in votes, and you're 6 of the votes to crush your car, they'll crush your car with 6 votes. And we were like, yeah, we're not doing that. So we parked the car for a little while, or at least would go race it or test it on some local tracks. And we found the Champ Car Series. Well, back then it was the Chump Car World Series, and then it has now developed into the Champ Car World Series. And that's where we won a couple of races with the 223 car, the one without the roof.
Right.
And then they came out with a new rules package, and we built the 225, which is that's how I started into the Lexus SC300 stuff.
Okay.
And that's how one became my burnout car. So my original burnout car was actually a road race car that I rented out, and the 223 car I also rent out for these events.
Okay.
Well, we kind of dialed back our road races stuff because there was 4 of us involved with the team, and then I had the 2 shop rental cars, but the 225 car was driven by myself, a guy named David Tenney, and Lee Saunders, who I crew chief for now in the Trans Am series. So there's the 3 of us driving the 225 car, and we won, I think, 9 races with that car. So we won that event. That's at Daytona. It was a 14-hour long race at Daytona. We won that race 3 times. We won both of those cars have won Road Atlanta Champ Car 14-hour races. And then we had a 9-year run at Sebring where we had 7 wins and 2 third places in these 14-hour races with one of our team cars.
Wow, cool.
The 223 won the first 2. And then we had a Nissan 240 SX we built that finished 3rd. And then we built that 225, number 225 Lexus SC300. And we went on a tear with that car. We won 7 out of 9 races that we entered over a 4-year stretch.
Wow.
And then the guy that owned that car, that was David, he had a couple of kids, and life got real busy for him, and he kind of wanted to dial things back. So I bought the car from him. And actually, Cleetus and I raced it at the last race that ever happened at PBIR. And we were leading by 2 laps when the freaking alternator shorted out and melted the battery. And it was kind of a crappy deal, but could have won the last race that happened at PBIR. And like, that was a fun, like, it was weird to be there because the place was shutting down. Like, the grass was all grown up. Like, it was weird to be there. Like, it was a weird feeling that this was the last race happening there. Right. And like some of the equipment had already disappeared and or been sold off. And it would have been neat to win that last one. And we were on pace to do it. And then dang car broke.
Stupid piece of crap alternator.
Yeah. Yep. And like with those things, you don't usually run like auto parts alternators and stuff. I buy a $450 alternator from the Lexus dealership because the factory quality stuff usually lasts really good in those cars. That's a completely stock 2JZ engine in it. It's got stock manifolds on it even. And then it's got basically an exhaust and an intake pipe and then custom tuning that like I tuned it on a Mega Squirt. Right. Or I think it's on a Mega Squirt, but the rest of the car is the package. Like it's got twin turbo Supra brakes on it, and it's as light as we can get it without completely stripping the car to where there's just the outer body shell and it's a tube chassis underneath it.
Like that, like the one above it.
Yeah, and even that one, like both of those cars actually weigh like 2,900-ish pounds with a driver in them, and like they both have like 20-gallon fuel tanks in them, and they're a blast. I mean, I enjoy the heck out of the road racing stuff because at least in the Champ Car stuff, the rules are your maximum driver stint length is 2 hours. So we build our cars to race for 2 hours, and then they're basically out of gas. So you come in and swap drivers, refuel the car, and you take back off again.
Right.
And like drag racing is awesome for that quick, like massive adrenaline rush, pulling 2.5, 3 G. Yeah, but like the more money you spend on a drag race car, the less time you get to actually enjoy it at speed. Now, the drag and drive stuff for me has kind of flipped that back a little bit where not only are you enjoying the car driving on the street, you're hanging out with a bunch of buddies, like you're driving with a good friend, or you're
about to be a good friend or the worst enemy you've ever made. You end up more times than not being good friends, and that's a good segue to thank the guys at Drag Driver Pete for the $10. Appreciate you guys, Michael Narks and Eric over there. They'll do their show tomorrow night. We love those Drag Driver Pete guys. Thanks for the 10 bones. Yep. And they want to know what the longest burnout you've done on the street is.
Probably one out here in front of the shop, like with the burnout car. Like that would probably be my guess. We had a couple decently long ones in Soccer Mom with the trailer on a drag and drive event. But the funny thing about Soccer Mom is in drag and drive, in street mode, it makes like 450 horsepower, maybe.
That's the best part about the street mode stuff is that these 7-second cars. My blower car runs 1150 all the time. 1150. So a lot of 7-second bruiser cars are in my sights when you're in street mode.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so the way Soccer Mom works is she's got 2 fuel systems on her.
Real quick, just run through the combo real quick.
So the fast combo is a Texas Speed 388, and it's got their PRC heads on it, their intake. Pretty much, it's one of their more competition-based engines, and I kind of collaborated with them. Yep, it's a 6-bolt LSX block, so iron block deal, and then I wanted aluminum rods in it, so it's got aluminum rods, and I forget, I think it's a diamond piston in it, whatever they had spec'd out when we kind of worked it all out, but it's like I think 11-1, and it's a dual fuel system car. So the way I build and tune a lot of these things is they're even doing the burnout on pump gas. And then
Okay.
as the car starts to spool up, when it makes like at, let's just say at 2 psi, it's on pump gas, and at 3 psi, it's 100% on methanol.
Wow.
So
so you
back
can
to
do
the
that
street
switch
stuff.
over that quickly, that
Oh yeah,
seamlessly.
oh yeah, and it, like you wouldn't even know it watching the car. Like, but in street mode, that means you only have 2 psi of boost before the car shuts off, because
Right. There's nothing in the
at least
methanol
the
tank.
way, well, either that or like on Soccer Mom, I take the belt off for
right.
the mechanical fuel pump, so it's got a belt drive fuel pump for the drag strip. So it might try to transition to the alcohol, but there's no fuel pressure, so it just shuts off.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it literally might make 450 horsepower, which you can't really do good burnouts with 450 horsepower when you're hauling a trailer and there's 2 people in the car and you got big tall tires on it, and
Right.
like Soccer Mom's got a 350 rear gear in it for the quarter mile stuff.
Yep.
And like it's like whenever we get back close, when we drive it to the shop on sick week, we'll stop around the corner and put the fuel pump belt back on it so that it will do a good burnout when we pull in.
Right.
We want to at least do a good burnout for people, and then that's also usually why the burnout car is ready. And I'll rip a set of tires off the thing completely to where
it's just ready to go all the time doing burnouts. Life is good.
Yep. So
the burnout car gets the biggest street burnout for the beer money for the $10 for the Driver Pete guys. Yep. Go check them out tomorrow night. They'll have their Driver Pete news. That's on all their social medias and whatnot. And yeah, we love them. And I'm actually announcing for the circuit, which is Mike Narks's nonprofit Drag and Drive. And it'll just be a 1-year only deal. It's typically Cliff Parvin's deal. I'm not going to go in and swoop in and take his deal. Unfortunately, he can't make the reschedule. So I'll be at the circuit as well, giving you guys the juice.
Sweet.
Josh Rich, who has been on my show before, wants to know, is Soccer Mom leaf sprung, and how did they get the name Soccer Mom?
Yep, still on leaf springs. The car actually has stock wheel tubs in the back. It's not even mini tubbed. It's on a 10-inch wheel with a 275 drag radial and no bead locks.
Wow, no bead locks.
Yep, that's one thing that we kind of learned with Will's car way back in the day. Is Kimber usually mounts our tires, and after he gets the tire on the rim, he'll put Permatex high tack rubber cement
on the tire. That's the move, and you glue it to it.
Yep, and it'll shift about 2 inches after it, like on the first couple of launches, and then it usually just stays put. And I mean, Soccer Mom has been 108 to 60 foot back in the day when it was lighter. Like we've got a fiberglass front end and doors and stuff for the car, and I think it can get down to 2,800 pounds with me driving. It could go even lighter now, I think, on methanol, because we would dump the radiator. Like back then, it had a 50 pound air-to-air intercooler on the nose.
Okay.
But I think it could get down as light as like 2,750. But for the drag and drive stuff, it's 3,275, I think, is what we weighed for sick week. But still on leaf spring.
No wheel tubs at all. No bead locks.
Nope. And if it was on a wider wheel, so it's only a 10-inch wheel, and I think that's one of the reasons why we get away with it. If it was a 12-inch wheel, I think it would spin. We'd have to go bead locks.
Right.
But yeah, no bead locks, and it's like typically we're not really standing on it for the sick week stuff or the drag and drive stuff, because the car is only legal for 750.
Right. And it's been quicker than that.
Yep.
I mean,
so it's been, well, if we want to do some bench racing math, to run 750s on sick week, I think we're usually running like 490s in the 8th mile, and it's been 460 flat at like in the 8th mile. And Actually, I think it's been quicker than that. Like we did a no time event, actually after sick week that I made the finals down at Bradenton, and no, that was before sick week. That was last, like in the fall. But the drive shaft trace and everything is like 5 miles. Like it's above. Like if I compare the two data logs, the drive shaft trace from the no time event is above the whole way over the 460 pass, and it's like 8 miles an hour faster at the 8th mile. So, and the 460s were, yeah. So I think it was in the 450s, but I don't have that slip. So we keep kicking around that we're going to put the lightweight stuff back on it and try and figure it out. Like basically if the car will go 450 anything and has the RPM to make the quarter mile, it should go like 690 something.
Okay.
And that's a goal we keep kicking around, but we race the car, but we don't put really the time and effort into it that a lot of the other local racers do that run the no time shootouts and whatnot. Because like we just take the car out for fun. It's a great advertisement for the shop. Like it gets worked on either here or at Will's house. And actually, I've got a new stator for it that we're going to stick in it because it's got the 5.3 back in it after sick week.
Right.
And so it's like we want to take the car out and try to go sixes, but the harder you lean on it, you shorten that lifespan of everything in the car.
Right.
So, but we're trying to get a hold, and admittedly, I'm still learning the alcohol tuning stuff and trying to be safe, but at the same time, I think there's possibly an avenue where you're too safe and you end up hurting parts that way. Or potentially like we've got something where we've got one cylinder that's not happy, because usually when it hurts itself, it's cylinder number 8. And I think I've pushed the head gasket out on cylinder number 8 about 3 times now. And it's kind of annoying because this year at sick week, I had everything backed way off of where it was last year at sick week. And last year we went like a 753, a 752, a 753, a 753, same tune up, same boost out the back. And then on day 5, it shoves the head gasket out of it, and I make the highlight reel backwards at 140 miles an hour through the 8th mile.
Like the third run I made, or I got to call all week, was you backing the thing through the 8th mile and not wadding it up, which was cool.
Yeah, and I was pretty proud of myself looking at the data after that one, which I did a video on my YouTube channel about it, about how I didn't just give up on it and clamp the brakes down, because once you lock the brakes up, the car's going wherever its momentum is taking.
It's on ice, right? It's an object in motion. It will tend to stay in motion.
Yeah, and one of the things that, not to pat myself on the back, but as the car would straighten back up from the slide, I would come off the brake pedal so that the momentum, the tires are rolling again, and it kind of would carry the car further down the track, and then it gets back sideways again, and I clamped it down so it would keep going down the middle of the track. And then as it straightened up, roll back off the brake pedal. And you can see the brake pressure data in the trace where I'm on and off the brake pedal.
Right.
And like in the moment, I don't realize that I'm doing that. I'm just driving.
It's muscle memory. Like you slid around a dirt road corner doing the same exact crap, and whatever, you can just do it. And that's totally true. Like the car's longer than it is wide, so you get it in its long stance, and it'll tend to try to stay going that way. That's totally a thing.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I had a similar incident in Will Stevenson's drag radio car. Like I drove it years ago running. The funny thing is, I think back then we were only running 450s, and we double entered the car because he had just gotten a new motor for the car, and we were sorting it out. And I just casually mentioned to him, I'm up there. I was like one of Will's crew guys, like changing the ice in the intercooler, airing the tires up, helping with shock settings, and then helping with power management. We were using a video camera for our data logger, like watching what the shocks were doing and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Will's aggravated because we're going into, I think, day 2 of qualifying. He's like, I need more runs. And I just kind of jokingly was like, well, I'll buy the car into Radio versus the World if you let me drive it. And he's like, really? And I'm like, really? So like we have this like standoff for a second, and I don't have my safety gear, nothing. So I cram myself into his safety gear, and I start making runs in the car too. And through the extra runs that we got, he makes it to the finals in Outlaw Drag Radio, and I'm in Radio versus the World, and I get beat first round Sunday morning. And I think I was racing Rob Valden, who was in a black twin turbo Mustang on methanol. Well, just my inexperience at the time, we go through the finish line. I get beat by a couple of car lengths because he was like Radio versus the World wasn't pro mods back then.
Well, and even then it was still, I mean, yeah, an LDR car was going to get run over in RVW. It's just always, it's a whole different deal.
I think Radio versus the World #1 back then was like 420s, and then the Outlaw Drag Radio class, as it was called back then, was running like 440s, 450s.
Right.
So I get beat, and right as I'm stepping off the gas, I hear something big, like a big bang. And as it turns out, after watching video and whatnot, it was methanol backfires from Rob's car, and I grab a hold of the brake pedal pretty hard, and it locks up the rear tires, and the thing goes sideways in the shutdown at 170 miles an hour, and I'm all sideways throwing the chute out. Very similar to what I did in Soccer Mom, and same scenario. And actually, there's a video way back on my YouTube channel that I put. The editing's terrible. There's no commentary. It's just the raw video of me almost crashing Bill's car, and it like when the car went sideways, all Will and the guys on the starting line could see was smoke everywhere.
Right.
So they come rolling down there, and they're like, the motor blow up? And I'm like, no. He's like, did you hit the wall? And I'm like, no. And so he's kind of perking up. He's like, I can keep racing? Because I'm feeling bad. Like, in the middle of, like, sideways trying to save this thing, I'm mad because I'm about to crash my buddy's car.
Right.
He's #1 qualifier in Outlaw Drag Radio, and his first round is coming up in, like, 50 minutes.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm doing all this stuff, and I've managed to save the car. And then he goes on to the finals, and I think it broke the blower belt or something in the finals, but still didn't crash the car. And like, as he's realizing the car's not hurt, he's kind of perking up, and I'm like, yeah, we're good. Like, I drove it.
You can drive it. Push me back. It might just have flat spotted tires, but like other than that, you're good, dude.
Yep. And like like I said, he ended up going to the finals, and like it's all these cool racing stories that, you end up in. And that reminded me that I actually had, I actually had my YouTube channel all the way back to like 2010 or earlier.
Okay.
And it was just like, I saw the YouTube thing and like, that's kind of a cool way to show some of the stuff we're doing, and didn't really pursue it. But then to answer your question that I've rabbit trailed off now for like half an hour.
It happens.
So once I started kind of hanging out with Cleetus, he's like, you do some really cool stuff at your shop, like, and especially with me helping you out, bumping your channel, I think you could get to where we can get you monetized, and like you can make a little bit of money. And so like, as anybody that's done stuff with him since then, you get the huge Cleetus bump when you're doing a project for him, and it's amazing. Like, you've got some money coming back in, and for when you do a project with him, if you work the YouTube stuff right, you can actually bring in some decent income. Right. And like, that's kind of how the business relationship works, because at least for me, when you do something like that for, so let's say a large YouTuber, I offer a shop rate or a discount on the shop rate, because I know that's like an advertisement for the shop. Right. Now, any project we've ever done here never gets billed the full hours that we actually put into it. And
you could never, it's same deal of keeping track of every single receipt. You couldn't keep track of every single like dime and dollar that goes into those cars. I'm sure of it.
We do pretty well on the part side of it because we literally every day we write down every part we use. Every guy in the shop has their own like tablet, and they enter in all their part numbers, and then we enter logs for our time. Like they clock in and clock out on a project. So
Okay.
like we've got thousands of hours in some of these builds, and typically what happens is like I'll come out and I'll help with a project and guide the guys on certain smaller projects. And then I'm bouncing from project to project around the shop, helping one guy over here, doing some guiding stuff. And then I jump over to the other project and I jump over to the other project. And then I might jump around and jump back on the dyno and do a dyno tune or go to the racetrack and help somebody tune one at the racetrack. But like those hours on these big, huge projects, like when you take a complete build, let's just say like Mullet. When I originally did Mullet, that was my biggest build at the time that wasn't our own personal car. Like Soccer Mom, when we did it, it was the three of us working on it at Will's shop or at Kimber's shop or at my shop.
Right.
And there's three of us working on it. And you're just working on it with your buddies. You're not keeping track of your hours, but you're still working on it.
Right.
And you think about like adding to the roll cage in the car or making transmission lines or building a fuel cell
like
or
stupid stuff. Yeah. Like setting
massive
nuts
hours
somewhere or whatever that like, oh, it's just going to take me a couple of minutes. And then 20 minutes later,
or hours later.
Right. You've answered 7 phone calls and you put 3 nut certs in.
Yeah. Or even like when we were building Soccer Mom, it was after hours. So like we weren't even answering phones. Like we were just like hanging out at the shop building the car. And when you're a shop, like trying to manage that and still keep the bills paid, and especially when like you take on a project for a YouTuber and you give them a discount, and then you put all these hours in and it accumulates. And like there's been projects where like I've put 100 hours on a car in 1 week and I'm not even on the clock. But like you go overnight working on the car, and then you get to the point where all of a sudden you realize, oh crap, I'm like behind on any money that we've brought into the shop because we all thrashed on this project. And then you look at the hours that all the guys put in over a 2-week time period, and then all the hours you put in, and it's like, well, shoot, I've got to charge enough to pay the shop bills, because you're trying to find this balance of like doing a good job for someone, because I want to only do good work, but that good work takes time. And so you end up in this hole, and then sometimes you overextend yourself and end up in a bad spot to where you have to like either you work yourself to death, and then you've got other things that pop up. You overwork yourself and you get sick, which has happened to me several times.
Right.
I'll put in a massive. Thankfully, none of us have gotten hurt yet, knock on wood, including myself. But I have, I mean, other than like, which I think it's all related, honestly, like I'll get stressed out or something, and then I start having back pains for like whether or not it's just a stress thing, then it's showing up in my back, because like we're kind of all tied together, how our bodies work and everything. But like, it's really tough because as a business, well, you're putting the hours into the car. And if I were to take on a whole bunch of like 10-hour projects, well, those 10-hour projects I can build 10 hours for.
Right.
But when it comes to these giant projects that take 2,000, 3,000 hours, now nobody wants to pay for that.
Right.
And it's like, well, where's the disconnect here? Because when it's a smaller job, and one of the things that probably might at a disadvantage to me is we can do the entire project under roof, with the exception of paint. Like I don't do paint, but like, well, except for my burnout car, which I did paint, but that's another story.
Right.
But when we and what we've tried to do better is break it down into smaller jobs, because when you, mount the radiator. All right. Well, I did a video where we built a custom radiator, and it's like a $2,500 radiator setup. But by the time we mount the fans, mount it in the car, do all this other stuff, and it's like, okay, so if I can bill that, invoice it to the customer, and then we're on to the next job.
Right.
It kind of like it works out to where they see and they understand, okay, well, there's this job. But when you go and just put in a ton of work, and one of the things where my business partner has been a huge help is we weekly invoice cars now, and they see their invoice like it's there at any point in time. We use a program called Shop Monkey in our shop. They get an update on the project, and the way that the way that we've been doing things more recently here is we get a pretty sizable deposit to even start on a project.
Right.
And then as we chip away on that money, they get down to $5 or $10 grand, and either they re-up their deposit or we stop working on the car.
Yeah, you get ready to get the car back to them.
Or the car just sits until they can afford to pay more money on it.
Right.
And like, even with as many of them as we've done, whether it's me being overly optimistic, and that's one of my faults, is you look at something and you're like, and I know this is very common for a lot of people, but you look at a project and you're like, yeah, there's 500 hours. In your head, you're thinking 40 hours a week. That's like 10 weeks. So yeah, I think I can get this thing done in 10 weeks.
Right. And then 30 weeks come by.
Oh yeah. And then do you
think you can do this? And can you change it? Actually, Vince is my chassis guy, and he's in here jumping in. And yeah, I mean, I get it, because like my stuff's changed 3 times, and I get it. Like, that's part, and he gets it too. Like, he knows it, but he's also stuck with 13 and a half hours in the shop today, and he can charge for 6 of them.
And I'm trying to get to the point, because I'm trying to get to the point where we've basically, well, let me see how I can phrase this. Like, in my opinion, as a shop owner, if I put 10 hours on your car, if I put 1,000 hours on your car, you should pay me for that 1,000 hours. Right. There's restoration shops that do really nice stock restorations on a car. They blow it completely apart. Everything's new floor pans, everything's mint. Those are 1,000-hour restorations.
Right.
And people are lined up to pay for these massive restorations, and you end up with a stock car.
Right.
When you get it done. And then in our case, we're doing that plus a 6.0 cert roll cage, and like dual fuel systems, and massive radiator and cooling systems for a big motor, and turbo systems, and like
tons of suspension stuff. And
oh yeah.
Right.
And it's like, as we've gotten better at it and we've developed our name, we try and keep it where it's small jobs chipping away, and like, you can get paid better for when you do a small job, you bill for it, and that's done. And you send pictures, and that's something we're trying to get better at now, is picture documentation of what we do every week, because there's times where there's the smallest thing that it might fit in your hand that you fabricated, and you had 2 hours in fabricating it. It does the job it needs to do. I'm a pretty good fabricator, so I don't think that there's, like, if you bring the best fabricator in the world, he's not going to do it in a quarter of the time that I did it.
Right.
He's going to have similar time that I had in doing it. So that 2 hours, you should pay for it. Right. But sometimes people look at stuff, and the more simple and the better you make it look, the less time they think you had in making it. And it's like, so you end up in this like weird fight with like, I want to do things nice, and I want to do things where it works and it doesn't break. And I try to think of problems before they happen, and then develop the car around that, or at least develop that particular project around that. And then you put 15 hours into one little thing, and then you bill. I mean, we're $130 an hour in our shop, and
Right.
it's like, well, freaking even at 10 hours, that's whatever that math is, $1,300 or whatever
Right.
for a day's worth of work, and then that's one day worth of work, like a 10-hour day where you get one thing done, and then you're like, oh shoot, and then like it might be
We
that
have 10 weeks of this.
oh, late. I mean, like literally, I've talked to some other people because in this industry, it's a fairly small industry, and like I've talked to other people that build cars, and I've gotten some numbers on some pro mods, and they're 2,500-hour builds to build a pro mod from scratch.
Right.
And in some ways, these drag and drive cars are like top level, like mullet style build. That's 3,000 hours by the time you take and strip the car down to nothing, because with a pro mod, you just start building. You don't have to you have
to disassemble it.
Yeah. Right. So like you start with a car and you strip it, and then you build the cage inside of it, and chances are you haven't built one like it, so it's not just like the last car you did, where with a pro mod, you've got your chassis table, you start laying bars, and the body just fits on.
It doesn't where everything goes, the bars are the same, the bends are the same.
Yep.
You can almost put it on a like assembly line and have a pro mod at the end, but doing a pro mod out of a El Camino.
Yep. Well, with a pro mod too, your body is 1/8 of an inch thick, so you can get the cage out away from the driver. But in a street car, you've got 2 and 3 layer thick of sheet metal. So if you leave all that in there, well, now your cage is all, close enough where you're going to bounce your head off the cage if you get in a bad spot. So there's a ton of time in stripping a steel body back to the bare shell. And people don't think that, well, these mullet level build cars, let's say that's a 3,000 hour project. Well, it can be. Now, if you pay one shop to do every single thing on it, and like you do the whole mess, it's going to be a boatload of hours, especially if it's like carbon fiber interior and like all sheet metal floor.
And if they want it turnkey, like it's got to be wired, all that stuff's got to be untested. You got to, got to put a shifter in it. And if you ever put a shifter in something, you've got to adjust the cable. You've got to get all that stuff right.
It's a ton of small projects that if you did them, somebody brings you a car in to adjust this to install a shifter. All right, well, there's 3-4 hours building a bracket, maybe like doing it real nice. But then on these higher level builds, okay, well, now you added an air shifter to it.
Right.
Well, now you've got to wire the air shifter. You got to plumb the air shifter. You have to program the air shifter in the ECU.
You have to tune the air shifter.
Yeah, you do that 50 times, and all of a sudden, well, there's 2,500, 3,000 hours in the car. And
of course, your customer is like, oh, I bought all the stuff, and it's in the trunk, and it's junk, and it leaks, and it doesn't work, and then you've got to fix that before. I get it. Like and I just made a post today about that. Like once you give me $1,000 for a weekend, I actually end up with $480 in my pocket.
Yep.
And that's
the whole business management stuff that people like when it's their fun. Because like for the majority of people, cars are their fun time, whether it's working on them or actually taking them out and using them.
Right.
And like when you're a shop and you've got employees and you're trying to, provide for all of them, like it gets tough. Not to mention what?
Yourself and, your daughters and your cars and your fun and Yeah,
and like people think you're getting rich because they see a $50,000 or $100,000 bill for a labor or $100,000 bill for labor, and then like I'm not like
you've got employees that you pay well because they do good work.
Yep. And even like we try to pay our guys as much as we possibly can afford to, and still, and actually it's funny because while I do get some benefits of being the shop owner, I actually make my paycheck is smaller than most of the guys in the shop because like I take less money out of here because I've in my younger years I bought a house, like my house is paid off, and like it's a small house, but it does everything I need.
And you don't
And
need a
yet
lot of money to live.
I don't need a lot of money to live, so I keep reinvesting my time and effort into the shop,
Right.
and eventually you hope that comes back for you and pays dividends. But there's times where it's like I could be doing something different and like working for somebody else, and working for somebody else in a lot of ways is an easier way to go about life than being a business owner.
100%. And
It's
that's where I'm at today. Like a very, very small business like mine.
mhm.
When you work for someone, you get health insurance that's cheap, and you have a 401k that they probably match. And
Yep.
that's like free money. And you get time off that's paid, and you get sick time that's paid. And like people see you gallivanting around, and like the shop's still making money because you have people that are put in the right spot by you and by your business partner. But like
Mhm.
if you're gone, you're a quarter of the shop, you're a third of the
Oh
shop.
yeah.
Like it definitely is. Like you're doing your thing, you're having fun, but like that's costing you money to go do stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yep. And that's one area where there's a disconnect from what people think and what reality actually is. Like, if I hadn't won the burnout contest down there, we'd have been negative for the weekend as far as like the time we took off from the shop. And then I did pay my guys to be down there because they're down there helping me.
Totally.
So like I feel obligated to pay at least what they would have made if we were working in the shop that day.
Right.
Then I buy their food, and I like, and especially when we travel out of state, like for Indy next in a couple of weeks, like it'll just be me and Eddie
Right.
because we used to take the merch stuff because the merch stuff would help pay some. We would at least break even. The merch would help us break even on the weekend by selling some merch and whatnot.
Pay for the
And
gas back and forth, and
yeah,
maybe pay for a guy.
yeah, and as time has gone on and I've kind of let the YouTube channel slack off, well, the merch sales go down when you don't like do the YouTube stuff as much. Well, you finally get to a point in your life, and I've people have noticed that I'll YouTube hard for a while and then I kind of fall off, and then I'll get back at it and YouTube hard for a while, and it's like this ebb and flow that like you get back energized and do it, and then that's another full-time job on top of managing the shop and on top of being a dad and running my girls around to all their extracurricular stuff.
And like you said, like they're not young anymore. Like they've got stuff now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my two youngest daughters are in travel gymnastics. So my youngest is a level 7 gymnast at 9 years old. So her uh, state championship was in Miami a couple of months ago. So
a long way away from you.
Yeah, and I flew down because it was on a Saturday and it wasn't my weekend where I had them. So like I flew down Saturday morning, missed my flight back because I got hung up in TSA, and then sat at the Miami airport until midnight until I flew back home at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I was supposed to be back at noon. Right. And I had customers I was going to go help at the drag strip after I got back to town that day, and just the wheels fell off, and I didn't get through TSA as quick as I thought I was going to because I underestimated Miami and it being an international airport, and that was my own fault, but it still messed me all up. And it's just all these things that compound, and sometimes I've gotten the impression from people that like they think it's all easy and I've got everything figured out. Man, I'm just doing the best I can to keep the wheels rolling, I guess is the best way to put it.
And keep food in your guys' family's, table. And because it's not just you, it's not just your kids. Like you've got guys that you got to pay attention to, and that's as a good business owner, you need to make sure that those dudes are taken care of too. So that's I mean it goes a really long way when you figure out, like, I mean, here we are, it's 10:36 at night, and you're still sitting at your shop, and I mean, no, you're not working, but you could be making money right now. I mean, you're sitting here talking with me, and you could be finishing somebody else, you could be working on Val's car or whatever. But that's that thing, and I appreciate you doing it, and but these 12 visitors that we have right now also enjoy it. We're way past our normal here, and what I'm going to do real quick. I know it happens, and what I would like to do is have you back on, because I always say this is that we can go 3 hours. But like, we just scratched the surface on you, so I would like to have you back on at some point. Let's get you through these couple of Cleetus events. Let's get you a couple more bald eagles, and let's yak after that. But I do want to ask questions that guys were asking up here. Why is the car called Soccer Mom?
So the story behind that is, Kimber works at the local Chevrolet dealership. He's the best tech they got down there. He's freaking the man when it comes to stock, like, Chevrolet dealership work. But anyway, he was able to buy a core engine that was a takeout, like the LS.
Yeah, it had like a lifter knock or something stupid.
Yep. Well, the engine came out of a Tahoe or a Suburban that has Soccer Mom sticker on it. Okay. And so initially we would go, like, this was kind of learning the LS stuff, and so we're going over to Kimber's house or Will's house, and we were working on the Soccer Mom engine. We were making fun of it that it was a Soccer Mom engine, because it was this 5.3 truck motor basically. Well, as we kind of finished building it, Kimber had the Soccer Mom car, or what ended up becoming the Soccer Mom car, and it had a small block Chevrolet in it back 15 years ago. He had sold it off, and maybe for, I don't know why, but he had sold it off and the car was sitting. Will had sold his Outlaw Drag Radio Camaro, and so we were kind of like, why don't we put the Soccer Mom engine into the Camaro, like Kimber's Camaro? So then it's like, okay. And so then we just kind of kept the Soccer Mom thing going, and then we're like, like, all these grudge racing no time cars down here have some crazy name. Right. And we're like, let's just call the car Soccer Mom. And like, so often people come up to us and they're like, does a woman drive it? And we're like, no, and then you tell them the whole story and they're like, oh, okay, I guess I get that. So that's where Soccer Mom came from. And, it's a different name, and it's a point of conversation. And,
it's got a sticker on the front window now that says Soccer Mom. Yeah. It's probably the same sticker that was on the minivan.
Yeah. Well, we made our own, with the car, or like there's Soccer Mom Racing now. Like, totally. It's something we sell in the merch shop. So like, we've sold a few stuff and posters and t-shirts, and it's that, and those things, they chip away at it, but they help fund some little stuff for the car here and there. And it's kind of neat. So
while we're on that, where can people get merch? Who gives you a hand on all your stuff? Where can people get, if this is the first time they've seen Kevin Smith or KSR Performance and Fab, where can folks look?
So winwithksr.com is the website, and there's merch stuff as well as part sales, because probably one of the areas that I have failed in was developing our own line of parts. We've just been like dealers for, all of your normal speed shop type parts. So like, I'm sponsored by Holley for like I'm in their racer program or whatever you want to call it, but we're also direct with Holley as a dealer. Okay. So years ago, when they were first coming out with the Dominator ECU, I bought into the Holley dealer buy-in program. And this was before I picked up some of the sponsorship stuff.
Right.
But I bought into the dealer program, and I had to go to Holly headquarters and go through a week-long training course.
Right.
So did that. Tom Kai's there. He, great dude, still does all the training classes.
Yeah, I was going to say he still does all that stuff.
Yeah, and he, at the time, I felt like he was impressed by some of the questions that I was asking and some of the things I wanted to do with the Dominator. And like we've stayed in touch from time to time here or there, or I'll run into him at LS Fest and, you know, we catch up a little bit. But kind of along the lines of that, we are dealers for all of the Holly brand products, which back when I first bought in, it was like Holly, Hooker, Earls, and maybe Flowtech. And now there's like 30 brands they've done, right, which has its positives and negatives. There's some things I've been not happy about that they've done. And for years, not to air dirty laundry, but for a few years, they were more concerned about selling direct to customer rather than supporting the dealers that put in the effort to learn their product and the dealers that were giving the customer support. Because EFI, for the average person that's putting it on an early, like say a 70s or 80s car, it's still a little bit out of some people's wheelhouses, or at least some of the trick stuff you can do with the fuel injection program.
Self-tuning, like they say it is. It'll run, but it won't tune. Like it's a whole different thing for sure. For sure.
Yep. So like they've been a big part of the company. Is like we keep a ton of Holly stuff in stock. There's a bunch of it on our website. Probably one of the companies that helped me when I was initially getting started and I didn't have a lot of work was actually TRZ Motorsports. Cool. And they're based down in Kissimmee. Bunch of awesome stock suspension stuff, as well as they've got their own 4-link kits and housings and all kinds of billet spindles and stuff that they're selling now. And
Vince is getting their ladder bars for my car that he's building for me right now. I just ordered them. Nice.
So back when I was working out of my home garage at my house, I would go down, hang out with them, because those guys are all like brothers to me, honestly. Awesome. So between Mike and Todd and Nick and Vince and all the guys that are like, that's the longtime guys that have been there. Mike and Todd are the owners, and then Vince and Nick have worked for them for probably 10 plus years now. But I would go down, hang out. My car was down there. Actually, some of the G-body TRZ parts were actually developed on my car. Or at least that's their car. So that's a car that was owned by, that was a TRZ shop car that was also, like, I think Eric Kenward owned a lot of it, but TRZ sponsored all the suspension stuff. You know, Eric Kenward's got a Malibu wagon that's pretty famous.
Gangster,
it's green. Yeah, green and black. It's been like 650s, 40s. He's pretty fast.
But real fast, yeah.
He does take it out. But anyways, I would go down there and hang out, answer the phone sometimes, sell some parts, work on my car, and then I would come back with 40, 50 hours of welding work. Like whether it was control arm base plates or rear control arms for an A-body or a Mustang. Like they were in a smaller facility and only had 1 or 2 guys welding back then. And Mike and Todd cared enough about me to help feed me some work. And then the next weekend I would weld it all up, bring it all back down there to them and get paid for it. So, and actually they sold me my first TIG welder. And actually Mike kind of laid the foundation for some of my TIG welding skills and like really helped kind of kick me off and get me going. So always be forever grateful for those guys. And, you know, along the years, through, you know, some of the other connections and the business and the racing stuff that we've done, other companies have come on board with us, like WireCare's one that's helped out a lot with our Deutsch connectors and Tefzel wire and heat shrink stuff. And all kinds of different electrical stuff that they sell.
And they've got good zip ties too. Real good, awesome wiring zip ties.
Oh yeah. Yep. And then some of their fire sleeving and all kinds of neat stuff that they do. Mickey Thompson Tires has been a helper for a while. They, we might get a set of tires every now and then from them, and that's always a huge help, which I keep bugging them about doing wheels because Soccer Mom has Mickey Thompson wheels and tires on her.
Right.
But they've kind of discontinued their drag race wheels, even though those are really good looking wheels. They've been a big deal. Gear Vendors has been another one that once we put a gear vendor in Mullet, I was like, holy smokes, these things are amazing. And I've done some kind of promotional stuff with him and Soccer Mom, and like got one going in my Cutlass, which hopefully makes it for Sick Week next year.
That was another question real quick. What's up with the cut? This is the same Cutlass, right?
Yep. Yeah. So that's actually my first car, and I bought it when I was 14 years old, I think. And my dad and it had a 260 cubic inch V8 in it.
Oh yeah.
And we got it. We ended up putting a 350 olds in it. And the first pass it ever made down the track was a 1970 or something like that in the quarter mile. But I was 17 years old and having a blast with it.
And it's got the Rollins Automotive sticker in the back, which is a cool old school speed shop based out of Gainesville. Those are cool.
Yeah, there's some history between me and them, and we don't talk. So
okay, all right, but used to.
Well, worked there for a long time. Let's just say that. And,
okay. All right. Okay. That makes sense.
There was some disagreements about some things, and we parted ways. That'll be the easiest way to say it.
We'll leave it at that.
Yep. And so that's what that sticker was on there for. But back to like sponsorship type stuff, like HTP Welders has been another one they came on board with us and let us buy some welders at a discount, which was a huge deal because I used to have an old Lincoln Square Wave 175 that I bought from TRZ.
Right.
And it was one of their first welders. So, and actually, the funny thing is, Will bought that welder from me. But then I got a couple of HTP welders. Now I've got 3 HTP TIG welders, an HTP MIG, as well as an HTP plasma cutter.
Cool.
And like freaking awesome machines. And they've been like, the Pete, that's one of their tech guys, is amazing to bounce ideas off of and get, like, when I learn something, I'm a lot better, and maybe a lot of people are like this, but like if somebody shows me how to do something, I'm way better than reading it in a book and like figuring it out. Like I do a ton of reading for research, whether it's, online or even watching some YouTube videos, or like I'm always picking up ideas and stuff from cars that I see might want to use in our own projects here in the shop.
Yep.
But the first time I ever TIG welded was at the PRI show, and I watched Wyatt Swaim, who is a like world-class level motorsports welder. Right. He used to be the guy that Lincoln flew into IndyCar races to manage any welding that needed to be done on an Indy car during a race weekend. Okay. So he was their guy at PRI, and I watched him, and I was hanging around the booth for, a solid like 15 minutes just watching him. And he's like, "You want to try it?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And they had the welders set up, for you to try them.
Right.
And so I tried it, and like, I know they set up, like, one of the things that makes it gives you too much confidence probably when you go to these events. The welder's already set up perfect. All the metal is clean. So as long as you mimic the same movements that like he did when he welded, you can lay down a pretty good weld. well, that's what I did. And he's like, whether it was the salesman in him or it was like he was genuinely impressed, he's like, you've never TIG welded before? And I'm like, no, I just watched what you did and copied it.
Right.
And he's like, you need a TIG welder because you've got some skill there. And that was kind of the initial TIG welding journey.
Cool.
And then bought the welder from TRZ and started down on the path. And like, I really enjoy the process of TIG welding and, flowing the metal together. And it's kind of artistic in some ways, I guess you could say. That like when you design something and
it's art, it's a little bit of, and it's engineering. There's a ton of cool stuff going on.
Yep. When you take it and you take a pile of tubing and sheet metal and build a functioning piece, whether that's a barbecue grill or a race car. Like there's something cool about taking just raw material and fabricating a finished product out of it. Totally. And that's kind of, like I said, in some ways it goes all the way back to my model car days when I was 8 years old, taking plastic rod that I would get from the craft store and bending up roll cages for inside of it, heating it up and making it bend to fit the roll cages just right.
Yep.
And I made a career out of it now. So
who knew, dude? I'm gonna just ask a couple more questions, and they'll be the one that I give you a heads up on. What car would you like to campaign for one event, and what car would you like to put in your garage? Or whose car?
I definitely have an answer for the first one. The second one I'm still thinking on. The first one would be any Hendrick Motorsports current Cup car. And I would love to get in one of those on like a road course. I think that would be a blast.
Oh, dude, totally. With the transaxle and with the sequential shifter and yeah,
I think that would be an absolute blast. And like something that is a hope and dream of mine, I guess I would say, because I got to put this out there because you got to put them out there if you got any chance of making them come through.
One of these 62 people watching could be the guy.
Yeah, well, I have intentions of running an ARCA race or a NASCAR truck race eventually.
Dude, sweet.
I've got some quotes, and it's currently out of budget for me.
Right.
But if I can get the YouTube channel back going again and start saving up some money to do a truck race or an ARCA race, one of the guys that left me, left the shop, went on to work for Spire Motorsports now. Okay. Some of the guys may remember Drew. It's awesome as a business owner to see, people move on and have success outside of me because, they move on beyond us onto their dreams or whatever it is. And I've probably had 15 employees through the time that I've had KSR, and some of them have gone on to start their own businesses, whether it's car related or otherwise. And then Drew moving on to do, work for a NASCAR truck team, which also has some Cup cars. And I've been up there and toured Spire Motorsports, and that's one of the places I got a quote from, which their trucks are arguably some of the baddest ones in the field. But they come with
they'd be the ones that you would want, but they know
afford it. Yeah. So, and I've kicked some stuff around with Cleetus, and some of it's half joking, but like if it came to a situation where he and I could be teammates or something, like for an ARCA race, that would be freaking fantastic.
Could you imagine, dude?
When it comes to some of the Crown Vic races, and it's been like I've had a few people that I very highly respect in the motorsports world tell me that I'm a pretty good driver. And like Randy Popes, if anybody knows who he is, like Motor Trend's hot shoe for 20 years. He's done some racing in our champ cars. And he was one of the first early on that was like, how many times do you drive a year? And at that time, I did 3 races a year in the champ car series.
Right.
And then we would have 3 or 4 test days where you're getting an hour in the car here and there. He's like, dude, you've got it. He's like, if there's an it to like wheeling a car, you've got it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm
Right.
I don't accept compliments very well, I guess I could say. So when somebody tells you that, you're like, yeah, okay, he's just being nice. And then as I've done more and more events, we won a bunch of champ car races. And then I show up in the Crown Vic races and I'm either coming from the back to the front if I've got a good car, or I'm at least in the conversation if my car's not so good. Like there's been, I just saw Josh. I bought my Ranger from Josh. That's the funny story about that. Like that deal all came together, and when I saw his ad for sale, I couldn't believe nobody had bought it. I saw the dyno numbers that he posted up, and I'm like, how has nobody bought this truck? And we bought it literally like a month or two before the first Ranger race, and I bought 3 trucks from him, and I think one of them, 2 of them are still here because Drew bought one of the trucks, or we gave him one of the trucks for kind of like helping out with mine so much.
Yeah.
And then now Ricky bought that truck, and we actually are storing it for Ricky while he's in fire college. But yeah, like the Ranger stuff, some of the Ranger stuff is we were prepped better than what some of the, like, you give me rules, I'm going to figure out how to best prepare a car within the rules.
The rules say what they say, and they don't say what they don't say.
Yeah, and somebody that's in my position, I don't even want to really push beyond what the rules say.
Right.
And just because the last thing I want to do is win a race and then get busted for cheating.
Right.
And so, like, when they put a 200 treadwear rating, 200 treadwear rule on the tires, well, that just happened to be something I already knew a ton about because of the champ car racing. I already knew what the best 200 treadwear tire was. So I bought 3 different size tires to play with the stagger on the car to make it, or the truck, to make it hook the corner better.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Drew and I showed up, I won. Well, I was actually I've been in all of the Danger Ranger races. I was the Stig in one of Cleetus's trucks at the first one.
Right. And
then showed up with my own truck and won the pole for the Bristol dirt race, and they put me to the back. Right. But I had that race. I would have won that race by a ton if I hadn't flipped, which everybody says that, yada, yada, yada. But when you're on the pole by 0.7 of a second at a half-mile track, I had the field covered. And then it's racing, you end up flipping.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
But then fixed the truck, won again, and then talked to JH about some of the stuff, like what tires and what wheels and stuff I had. And then he got his now wife, her uncle, I think it is big into circle track. So he's been getting some help from him, and he has stepped his game way up. So now there's like 5 of us that have really fast trucks.
Right.
And like, it's like Ricky's truck's fast. Eddie's building another truck. He's selling his original truck, which is actually the truck that won the first Danger Ranger race.
Right.
So I've had all of the winning trucks except JH's here in my shop at one point or another.
Winning KSR, baby.
That's right. So, but yeah, that's been a lot of fun, and I hope they keep doing it, because it's the most, aside from the Ultima thing, it's the most entry level racing you can get into down at the Freedom Factory.
Right.
The Ultima thing is fun, but it's more a survival, I feel like, more than hardcore racing. The Rangers were
just show up, and if you got an Ultima, you're in.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a wide range of Ultimas, whether it's horsepower based off of the year, or it's kind of like the Crown Vics. If you get a higher mileage one, it's not going to make the same power. But then there's also in the Altimas, there's lower engine packages that are
Right.
just duds compared to the car like what Garrett had. So
Right.
I do plan to do the Altima race as well. I've got a guy who wants to put me in a car for that. So I'm like, okay, I got to actually talk with him. I've been so busy lately. Haven't had the chance to have a phone call with him and get some stuff set up that he wants to get set up. But it's that's part of the business stuff and dad life and all that stuff.
Speaking of, we're over 2 hours. I'm cutting it. I'm gonna give you whatever amount of time we have left to consider what car you'd like to put in your garage. So we'll come back to that one. We'll come back to who you like to watch on YouTube as well. But I'm gonna have you back. So let's get you a couple more of these Cleetus trophies coming up. We'll let you earn a little more money out of the Fab Shop, and then you can cut me out another couple hours, and we'll do part 2.
Yeah. We going to see you at Indy for advertise or for announcing?
I will not be. I have not been asked to come back for Indy or for New England, unfortunately. But
Bummer.
I am on all the Freedom Plus drag races this year, so I will take that all day and every day. So,
heck yeah,
I'm excited to have what I've got, and hopefully I can make it back to that. But David Freiberger killed it at the Freedom 500, but they do need to have a pit guy, in my opinion.
Yep. Well, you get the excitement. You get the stuff that's the most controversial because there's been a couple of times.
Right. I mean, the second you crashed out, I had a microphone in your face. So, it was good. Kevin, thank you so much. This has been absolutely awesome. And like I said, I will be sliding back in your DMs, and we will do part 2. And we'll get another couple hours because this one went quick, and I got none of my stuff answered, but I had an absolute blast.
Hey, thanks for having me, and appreciate everybody that's watching. I will get back to the YouTube stuff eventually. I will promise that. It's like I've said on some of the videos. For me, YouTube is secondary to the shop, which is behind my kids and like my girlfriend, and like there's the stuff that's more important to me than like the shop, and granted the shop is pretty important because that's my living, but like if we've got a medical thing or like there's a kid event somewhere, that's what we're going to. And like that used to be the time that I put into YouTube, and when you get so much on your plate, you start chipping stuff out.
Something's got to give. You just can't. You got to sleep too. So, I think people get it.
Yeah, and I love doing it. Like I really do, but it's just you finally get so overwhelmed with stuff that you got to take a break from something, and that's the thing that had the least impact on. Like it had the biggest impact on my time and the least impact on my finances. So that's the thing that had to go, and we'll eventually get back to it. And like literally, there's been nothing done to my Cutlass since the last video on it because it's shelved back up in the rafters again.
It's back up in the rafters. Yep.
Because customer projects were more important than working on my car. So
totally,
I will get back to it, and maybe we'll get you here for Sick Week, and you can see it more in person.
I will look very, very likely be at Sick Week. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to see it. But like I said, in the meantime, go get yourself a couple more wins, get yourself a little bit of sleep, and go hug those girls of yours, 3 of them, girl dad. So let's get that done. I will get us set up with episode number 2 with Kevin Smith. Guys, like I said, next I have Travis Dieterle. That's going to be awesome. A little bit of insight into the pro stock world. And then in 2 weeks, I have Mr. Mike Finnegan. That is going to be an absolute banger as well. So thank you, Kevin. I'm going to just throw it out, and I'm going to let you go to sleep and do the thing. But like I said, I will be back with you. We'll get episode number 2 with Kevin set up. I will let everyone know when that happens. If you're still on here and you're thinking about it, click on that subscribe. Cruise on over to KSR. Check them out as well. Give them a subscribe if you haven't already done it, because when he gets back going, it would be cool to kind of keep up with whatever's going on. So thanks so much for that. Thanks so much to everyone in the comments for paying attention and doing the whole thing. And thanks again to Mr. Kevin Smith from KSR. And thanks for a great night, dude. And like I said, I'll slide in your DMs. We will get episode number 2 with Kevin Smith coming up here very, very soon. But again, it's super duper cool. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone on. And you guys have a fantastic night. That's Cool Drink episode 72. We are going to call it an evening. Thank you guys so much. And Kevin, I'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much. That's Cool Drink episode 72. We are done. See you, Kevin.